There is a place where the light of the sun begins to lose its authority. A region so distant, so cold, and so silent that for centuries humanity could only imagine what waited there. Beyond the planets. Beyond the frozen edges of familiar space. Beyond the invisible shield that protects our tiny world from the violence of the galaxy. For most of human history, this place existed only in theory. A darkness untouched. A frontier unwitnessed. And yet, decades ago, humanity sent something fragile toward it. Not a warship. Not an advanced machine built by artificial intelligence. But a spacecraft assembled with technology so primitive by modern standards that few believed it could survive even a fraction of the journey ahead. Its name was Voyager 1. When it launched in 1977, the mission seemed temporary. A brief encounter with giants. Scientists expected it to sweep past Jupiter and Saturn, send home photographs, collect measurements, and eventually disappear into silence. No one imagined it would become humanity's most distant traveler. No one imagined it would survive long enough to witness the edge of the sun itself. At first, Voyager moved through a solar system that still felt familiar. Earth faded behind it. Mars disappeared into distance. The giant worlds slowly grew larger. Then came Jupiter. A planet so massive that more than 1,000 Earths could fit inside it. From a distance, it looked calm. Beautiful. Almost peaceful. But Voyager revealed something completely different. Jupiter was chaos. A violent atmosphere twisting endlessly with storms larger than entire planets. Clouds moving at impossible speeds. Lightning storms exploding with energies far beyond anything seen on Earth. And deep within its endless turbulence, Voyager witnessed something unexpected. Its moon Io. Scientists once believed moons were frozen relics. Dead worlds trapped in silence. But Io shattered that assumption. Massive eruptions exploded across its surface. Volcanoes. Not ancient scars. Not frozen mountains. Active volcanoes hurling material hundreds of kilometers into space. For the first time in history, humanity realized distant worlds were not sleeping. The solar system was alive. And Jupiter held another secret. Something invisible. Something terrifying. Its magnetic field stretched outward like an unseen empire. Radiation trapped inside it surged with such intensity that an unprotected human would not survive. Even machines suffered. Voyager crossed through storms of invisible energy, silently enduring forces no human eye could ever witness. But it survived. And it continued. Always forward. Always deeper. Then Saturn appeared. A pale giant wrapped in rings so beautiful they almost seemed unreal. From Earth, those rings looked smooth. Simple. Elegant. But Voyager uncovered something astonishing. Saturn's rings were chaos disguised as perfection. Billions of fragments moving in endless motion. Ice and stone dancing through invisible gravitational patterns. Gaps appeared where moons quietly shaped entire structures. Ripples moved through the rings like waves spreading across an impossible ocean. What once looked motionless suddenly seemed alive. A giant machine of gravity operating in silence. Then Voyager turned its attention toward Saturn's moons. Frozen worlds drifting through darkness. At first glance, lifeless. But strange details emerged. Cracks across icy surfaces. Unexpected textures. Evidence that these moons had stories buried beneath frozen skin. One world in particular quietly unsettled scientists. Enceladus. A small moon no one expected to matter. Voyager could not fully reveal its secrets. But subtle clues hinted something unusual might exist below. Years later, scientists would discover the truth. An ocean hidden beneath ice. Jets of water erupting into space. The possibility that even in freezing darkness, life might someday exist. It was a realization both thrilling and unsettling. If oceans could survive this far from sunlight, what else was possible? But Voyager's greatest mission had only just begun. Because Saturn was never the ending. It was the doorway. Beyond Saturn stretched a region humanity barely understood. A vast emptiness where sunlight weakened and temperatures collapsed toward unimaginable cold. No human-made object had entered it before. No maps existed. No certainty remained. Only questions. Some scientists wondered whether space beyond the planets would feel empty. Others feared violent radiation. Magnetic storms. Unknown boundaries. Voyager had no rescue mission waiting behind it. No repairs. No second attempt. Keep listening. Keep speaking. And so the spacecraft drifted onward. Year after year. Silent. Alone. Carrying a message from a species uncertain of its future. Attached to Voyager's side rested something strangely human. A golden record. Music. Voices. Laughter. Greetings in dozens of languages. The sound of wind. Rain. A heartbeat. It was not a scientific instrument. It was something far stranger. Hope. A message sent into darkness with no expectation of reply. A declaration that somewhere in the universe, a civilization once existed that looked upward and asked impossible questions. And now, Voyager was carrying that memory toward a destination no one could predict. Ahead waited a boundary. Invisible. Mysterious. The edge of the sun's influence itself. And what Voyager would eventually discover there would challenge one of humanity's oldest assumptions about the emptiness of space. For centuries, humans imagined the space between stars as emptiness. A silent ocean of nothing. Cold. Motionless. Dead. Beyond the warmth of the sun, many believed there was little left to discover. Only darkness stretching endlessly outward. But Voyager 1 was about to reveal something unexpected. Something almost invisible. Something hidden inside silence itself. By the early 21st century, Voyager had traveled farther than any machine humanity had ever created. The planets were long behind it. Jupiter and Saturn had faded into memory. Even sunlight had weakened into a distant glow barely strong enough to illuminate the surrounding void. Yet Voyager continued. Unstoppable. A machine from another era surviving against impossible odds. Then came the moment no spacecraft had ever experienced. A boundary no human being could see. No wall. No glowing barrier. No cosmic gate opening dramatically in space. And yet it existed. Scientists call it the heliopause. The invisible frontier where the influence of the sun begins to surrender to something greater. For billions of kilometers, the sun pushes outward through space using streams of charged particles known as solar wind. An invisible force surrounding the planets like a giant protective bubble. But eventually, even the sun reaches its limit. And Voyager was approaching it. At first, nothing dramatic happened. Space remained dark. Silent. Unchanging. But deep inside Voyager's instruments, strange shifts began to emerge. The solar wind weakened. Charged particles flowing from the sun suddenly dropped. At the same time, something else surged forward. Cosmic radiation. High-energy particles born from violent explosions across the galaxy. Supernovas. Colliding stars. Catastrophic events unfolding unimaginably far away. Voyager was entering territory where the galaxy itself began to speak. Then in 2012, history quietly unfolded. Without celebration. Without witnesses. Without ceremony. Voyager crossed into interstellar space. The first human-made object ever to leave the protective influence of our solar system. Humanity had crossed into the stars. Not with astronauts. Not with giant ships. But with a machine launched when disco music played on radios and computers filled entire rooms. Yet what Voyager discovered there confused scientists. Interstellar space was not empty. Far from it. Tiny particles drifted between the stars. Magnetic fields stretched invisibly through darkness. And then something stranger appeared. Waves. Faint vibrations moving silently through plasma. Tiny ripples traveling across the near vacuum of deep space. At first, researchers barely noticed them. The signals seemed weak. Almost meaningless. Like whispers buried beneath static. But over time, a picture emerged. The darkness between stars was alive with motion. Invisible energy crossed impossible distances. Shockwaves traveled outward from ancient stellar explosions. The galaxy carried echoes. Memories of violence that had happened light years away. Even silence had structure. Even emptiness contained motion. Voyager had entered a region humanity had misunderstood for generations. A place quiet enough to feel dead, yet strangely alive. But survival came at a cost. Time was beginning to catch Voyager. Its systems aged. Power faded. Temperatures plunged. The spacecraft traveled through cold so extreme it approached the edge of physical possibility. Its energy came from decaying plutonium, slowly weakening year after year. Engineers back on Earth faced impossible choices. Which systems deserved to survive? Which instruments had to be sacrificed?